Ball run by number 2, Kemp.
All right, how weird was that?
A lot of emotions, I would say. I wasn't even really ready. I could barely even speak right now. I'm just happy. It's my birthday. I got the dub. We did what we had to do. Yeah, all the focus was on Nick. Nick was doing his thing. Yeah, when my opportunity came, I just took it.
We tipped the ball, we picked it off, we got to midfield, and Mr. Kemp was able to get it 64 yards from there right before the half, and that has to crush it. But give him the credit because they fought in the second half.
Yeah, it was a little chit-chat during the game, you know. There's a little emotional, but other than that, we good. Everybody coming to meet up at my house later.
Here's what I said to him. Happy birthday.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Meat Grinder, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut. And I am your host, Sean Patrick Bowley. With me, as always, is a guy I call not Sean, but Pete Paguaga. Not Sean, Pete, how are you?
Good. Kind of a little slow week last week. A lot of conferences on buys and got a lot of more conferences on buys coming up this week. So I think, it's the mid-season, but it's not the mid-season yet. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but for like us, this is kind of like a little bit of our slower time, which is kind of nice, but also really? There's 1,000 things that have to get done.
For some reason, I feel like I'm doing just as much work this week than I am. And no one wants to hear it, but I feel like I did just as much. I mean, maybe there was one game I went to, the St. Joe game, New Canton St. Joe in the rain, where you and Dave Stewart did all the work, and I just kind of hung back, hung out with Shelton. You can see a little bit here. Me and the guy, talking to the guys, talking about their crazy 27-0 win over Notre Dame. It certainly wasn't North Haven. They needed to work for that one. And all the Shelton guys, in that umbrella. And I get a text from Mike DeFelice saying, like, oh, hope you guys, you guys talked about, good things over there. Nothing bad. And I said, of course. And I go, by the way, yeah, do you think you guys could spring for another umbrella for these guys? These poor guys are sitting out in the rain getting pneumonia. Next thing you know, you're going to have half the team out. Come on. Nice job.
I'm gonna vouch for them. I feel like boys don't care if they have an umbrella or not. Like I don't think I've ever used an umbrella until I became an adult. Like I used it as a kid, and then from maybe 9 to 22, I was just like, I don't need an umbrella. It's just water. I used to never wear a jacket because I was afraid that I would leave it whenever I took it off.
Yeah,
which I've lost numerous jackets.
Yeah, I know. I never cared that much. But these guys, they look cold over there. Look at them. They're all huddled underneath. They can barely fit. They're all huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. So, but shout out Shelton. They're big podcast watchers. They said they gather every day, every week. I think Thursday, 5 o'clock, and watch the whole thing. So God bless, guys. Keep staying there. They had a lot of questions for us, but we'll get to those later. But anyway, they had a big game this week. But the big game for us all weekend, I think, pretty much, was obviously West Haven at Hamden. The anticipated return of Kemp in a West Haven uniform to his old haunt. I mean, it was just late August. He was scoring touchdowns in the preseason for the Green Dragons, and then all of a sudden, 1 week later, he's in a West Haven uniform. And it was an interesting homecoming, so to speak, and it was oddly, Pete, Hamden's senior night. I guess they have one more game before the Green Bowl, and that's in November, so they decided to have senior night for all the players and the cheerleaders and everything. But obviously Hamden, you can see the stands are somewhere in New Jersey. It's one of the worst construction decisions of all time. But it was homecoming for Kemp, unbeknownst to us at the time, who was celebrating his 18th birthday, playing against his former teammates and coach at Hamden. And while everybody was focused on Kemp, who did we forget about but Nick Conlan, the West Haven quarterback? You've been talking about him all year, Pete. Torches everybody, finding Devontae Eddy for the quick strike 35-yard touchdown and a 6-0 lead. Hamden, which welcomed back quarterback J.J. Gibson, who missed the last 3 weeks because of surgery on his non-throwing left arm, actually drove the Dragons to the West Haven 10, but they gave up the ball on downs. Nick Conlan goes back to work. Just a few plays later, Hamden bites the fake to Kemp. Conlan goes in untouched, 12-0 lead. Next Hamden possession. It's a fumble. Jaden Franklin pounces on it, and on the last play of the first quarter, Conlan, of course, fakes the Kemp on the sweep, then follows Jaron Cox, dances out of a couple tackles, and races down the left sideline for a 40-yard touchdown run and a 20-0 West Haven lead. Now, if you've heard this one before, you have. Last year, West Haven also took a 20-0 lead in Hamden. This was old half for them. No big thing. J.J. Gibson uncorks 2 big passes down to the West Haven 1. Charles Hebron punches it in from there, and now it's 20-7. Dragons get the ball back with a chance to make it a one-score game. Shijuan Young with the great 4th down catch down to the West Haven 30. But with time running down in the half, Corian Harris gets his hand on a pass, tipped to Andrevion Dixon. West Haven takes over, and with 11 seconds left at their own 36, Kent rips off a 64-yard touchdown run on a simple trap play. 26-7 West Haven. Happy birthday, Kemp. At the break, it was halftime, and despite Coach Ed McCarthy's constant worrying, that was effectively that. Hamden never got within 2 touchdowns again. West Haven goes on to win 47-21. Conlan adds another TD run. Avion Graham gets a pick 6. Westies undefeated, and according to Kemp, the dub was all he wanted for his birthday. And according to him, all's fair and loving football, and everybody's hanging out back at his house for a little birthday cake and pie, I'm sure, give or take.
All right, how weird was that?
A lot of emotions, I would say. I wasn't even really ready. I could barely even speak right now. I'm just happy. It's my birthday. I got the dub. We did what we had to do.
Tell me about that last TD before the half. They were kind of really focusing on you. You know, how badly do you want to score, number one, and then especially at the end of the half game?
To me, it wasn't really about scoring. I just wanted to come out here and get the dub. You know, all the focus was on Nick. Nick was doing his thing. Yeah, when my opportunity came, I just took it.
Did you get to, you talked to any of those dudes over there? Any of your boys?
Yeah, it was a little chit-chat during the game. You know, there's a little emotional about me leaving. So, yes, yeah. But other than that, we good. Everybody coming to meet up at my house later. So.
Was there anything you had to say to him going into this game? I know it's kind of emotional for him and stuff. Or
Here's what I said to him. Happy birthday. Today's his birthday, so yeah, no, I didn't have any special speech or anything. He's a professional. He's a senior that's been in big games and been in big situations. He knows how to handle it. He's got a lot of class, and he's a good sportsman. He understands what it is.
Nick scoring, doing his thing, kind of took a lot of pressure off a lot of guys. Huh?
A lot of guys. Nick is the hub of that wheel. Everyone else is a spoke off him. They're all great players, but without Nick, they don't have a chance to be as great. And 2 years ago, Hamden beat us here in overtime, and I had to tell my starting quarterback, who I loved, that a freshman was going to take his spot. And it was a terrible weekend for me, and it was a hard decision. But I think Nick's lost 3 games since then.
So I thought we lacked discipline tonight, and that's a reflection of me, and I got to do a better job cleaning this up with our troops here. I couldn't be more proud of my kids for how hard they played. They didn't give up. We're out to score as we kept on coming. I thought we moved the ball well in chunks tonight, but when it came down to it, it seemed like we had a false start or we ran the wrong pattern and the tip drill happened. So there's things that happen like that. In order to beat decent teams, you're going to have to be able to finish drives and not turn the ball over. We did that tonight, and that's stuff that I got to work on with my staff and my players to make sure we eliminate.
Cam, I guess everyone seemed to handle it well. On the other end, he scores a TD, and everyone's like, how did it feel seeing him there on the other side?
Player on another team scored a touchdown. Good for those guys.
Obviously, Hamden coach Tom Dyer still a little sore about it. Not really saying much, although they're saying that Kemp now is just another player. But I will say this, Pete, Kemp was right. A lot of his former teammates were giving him pats on the back, saying happy birthday. They were all pretty cool with it. You know, I don't necessarily blame anybody for being kind of sore on it. He did leave right before the season, but you know, at this point, let's let bygones. Well, we don't really know what happened there. It's a family issue, he says. You know, what can you do? You know, he's a high school kid. I mean,
yeah. The big question I have is what kind of cake was it? Was it like a baked cake with like frosting? Was it like an ice cream cake? Like me, I like ice cream cake better. What was the candle situation? Is it 18 candles or is it a 1 candle and an 8 candle? Those are the questions I have. So Cam, just let me know for your ice cream cake or like, you know, a cake kind of thing.
It might have just been cupcakes, man.
That's what I was just about to say. It might have just been cupcakes, but I need to know what the dessert situation was on Friday night.
Yeah. Well, maybe that will leave some things unknown here. But so there it is, Pete. West Haven, Hamden, the Westies undefeated. They're ranked number 2. And speaking of polls, let's just jump right into it now. Let's take a look at the latest top 10 poll. Last week we had to wait a week because of Greenwich. Starting at the top, going up, Bloomfield is number 10. They were idle last week and now idle this week until Northwest Catholic in 10 days. Number 9 is Darien, idle last week. Somehow Pete gets moved up to number 9, taking Bloomfield's spot. We'll have Andy Grant on in a little bit to talk all about that, plus his team's prospects playing against Greenwich on Saturday. Number 8 is Ansonia, goes into the bye by ripping Wolcott 35-0. They have 2 weeks to prepare for Holy Cross, which took its time beating WCA last week, down 13-0, ripped off 42 straight points. Ron Florian with a nice sparked the rally with 3 touchdowns. Holy Cross will go into the bye having to prepare for number 8 Ansonia at Jarvis, October 20th. Number 7 Staples, which dropped from number 6 while remaining idle. That might be the least of their worries, if we're all being really honest here. We'll see when they face Wilton Saturday at 2. Number 6 is New Canaan, which just ripped past St. Joseph. What was it, 42-0 in a game that we both attended and both left at halftime. Rams are on a 4-game win streak and have scored 168 points in those 4 games since losing to Shelton 26-23 in the opener. Number 5 is Newtown, 4-0, also idle last week. They faced New Fairfield on Friday. Number 4 is Maloney, and man, Pete, how about your boy Dante Kelly returning 2 punts for touchdowns to go with 2 previous kickoffs for TDs as the Spartans ripped Glastonbury, the team that beat them last year, famously in overtime, 41-0. They got a bye this week, face New Britain in 2 weeks. Number 3 is Cheshire, another little bit of a slow burn that only amped up late, 41-6 victory over Amity. They still have a first-place vote picked up last week, and next is Hamden on Friday. And then finally, of course, number 2, West Haven, which we just talked about, and they get 2 weeks off to prepare for North Haven, which ripped Fairfield Prep with Adam Pandolfi. Was that 28-0 or 28-7? And number 1 is Idle Greenwich, which, of course, faces Darien Saturday at 2:00. Pete, your thoughts on the top 10?
Ooh, a lot of shifting. I thought I might see a couple of more first-place votes for West Haven. We're kind of at the point of the season now where I think some voters not get uneasy, but like we all voted Greenwich preseason number 1, right? One person voted Ansonia 1. That person has stuck with Ansonia. We saw 1 vote go to Cheshire. I think that was a week ago. I thought maybe we'd see some votes maybe start to go the West Haven way. I know there's a lot of people that are talking about it, something we will address later, but we're kind of getting to that point in the season with the buys, and it's going to make it's kind of crazy looking at, we have, I guess, a lot of undefeated teams left, but not a lot of undefeated teams left at the same time. But a lot is going to be decided in the next 2 weeks as well. That's really going to help shake this out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I know a lot of people are starting to look at West Haven. Should they be number 1? Where are we going to put them? Let's just put it this way. Greenwich, they have a top 5 win over Maloney. West Haven has beaten 2 ranked teams, one of them being Shelton last week, which was a very good win in the rain. And then they beat Hamden, which is still a pretty good team. Greenwich plays Darien. We'll find out. Maybe Darien's got some surprises for him. speaking of Darien, let's just go to our guest straight off and get Andy Grant on here, the first-year coach of the Blue Wave, right now. Joining us on the show is, of course, the first-year head football coach of the Darien Blue Wave, ranked number 9 this week. You didn't play last week. You're slowly itching back up the rankings. It's Coach Andy Grant. Andy, welcome to the Meat Grinder. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I appreciate moving up in the rankings without playing a game. So it's a good feeling.
We call that respect. You're getting lots of respect. Which hey, listen, you guys are undefeated so far. You didn't play week 1, which I'm sure was a bummer for the rest of you guys. But for a first-year head coach, been with the program for a while, but a first-year head coach, was that week 1 bye kind of a what was it for you? Did you like it? Did it give you a chance to breathe a little more? Start your first game. How'd you guys handle that?
Yeah, that certainly wasn't the head coach's manual that I was trying to go by. It was tough. It was an hour before our buses were about to leave. We got the call that they weren't going to play the game. Brought the kids in. Just an emotional roller coaster for the kids, for the coaching staff. We put a lot of time in to that, and so coming off that was a tough Friday afternoon. I made him come out the next morning at around 7:00, and we had a pretty good practice to try to just shake it off and move on. But there certainly was a bit of a soft point of our emotions, and it was just a tough week. But luckily, we got to play the following week, and we've played ever since. Hasn't been the smoothest of first 4 games with weather and a forfeit and all sorts of different issues popping up, but it is what it is, and we're continuing to push on and look forward to this weekend.
Well, tell me about your guys this year. You've been with the program for the last 10 years, as an assistant. Your first starting job was at Massac. We talked a little bit offline. Your first starting job was at Massac during that great 2011 team that they had. They played Hand, obviously, the eventual state champions in that crazy game at Ken Strong Stadium, Casey Cochran's senior year. And then you ended up at Darien. First of all, tell me about how you ended up at Darien. And then, what it's been like, and then finally becoming a head coach, and how did you ended up taking over for Mike?
Yeah. So I was with Mike at Massac, and then he brought me along to Darien to be the secondary coach. I was with Mike and Rob for 10 years, and Mike for 2 more. And then when Mike moved on, I took over the head job. That 2011 Massac Hand game was brutal. We felt like we knew everything was coming, and we knew when they were going to blitz. We knew everything, but they just were a powerhouse, and that was one of the biggest butt kickings I've ever taken. And we had a great team, and they were just loaded. Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
But as far as what did you? So that was ages ago. But what did you learn for being at Darien for the last 10, 12 years? Yeah,
I think the biggest thing I've taken from Rob and Mike is just the precision and the detail that goes into what they did on a weekly basis, the preparation. Rob was unbelievably prepared down to every single detail. Mike had that same passion for just nonstop film. His energy was through the roof as a head coach. His passion for the game, and so I try to take a little bit of what I learned from those 2 guys and bring that with me as my own head coaching style.
Did you envision yourself one day becoming the Darien coach? Did that just kind of happened?
I'm not sure I envisioned it 5 years ago or 3 years ago. But I think when Mike left, I really wanted to keep some consistency within the program, and had a lot of feedback from the players, families, the community. That just my style was something that the community and the players wanted, and I applied, and fortunately I got the job, and I've had a great time ever since.
So Darien last year, long time had not made the playoffs, a double negative, but that was the first time they had missed the playoffs in at least 10 years, as far as I can remember. Like I think 2012, I think the first year you were there, they didn't. Did they make it there? No, they didn't. So
We didn't win that year, but we beat New Canaan in the Turkey Bowl, so it salvaged a 6-4 season.
Right, but that was the last time anyone in Darien experienced anything like that. I'm sure it was pretty jarring. Being a head coach, now you got a lot of pressure on you to maybe kind of get the program back into a new level. What kind of things did you go in and make changes to kind of make this your team and make this your, with also trying to keep the same kind of foundation? Is it what kind of changes did you make, Coach, and and what's worked out for you so far?
We've tried to bring a lot of things in house. Our weightlifting program, we've worked out every single morning at the high school this year for the first time. So we were able to bring that in house and have the kids all working out in the same place every morning throughout the summer. Brought in new coordinators. We have a new defensive coordinator and new offensive coordinator. So our style is a little bit different than people are used to. And I think the culture has changed in the last month and a half of just being we're trying to be a very physical team, practice hard, play hard within practice, and keep the level of intensity high. So when we get to a game situation, it's that same level of physicality that we've been going at each other all week in practice.
How many guys were back from that? I mean, you don't seem like you have a lot. It's almost like you're almost starting fresh here, right?
Yeah. I think 3 guys that stayed on the staff, and I think 9 new. So it's been a much different feel than I've had the last 11 years in Darien, with just new faces and new personalities. But I think the kids are really responding to the coaching staff.
Did you say Matt Walsh there?
Yeah. Go back in time when Han put a beating on Massac, he was right there. He brings a lot of intensity to practice. He's dripping in sweat, running the drills basically with the kids. You run a pursuit drill with that guy, and he's ripping around the field just like it was in 2011.
Yeah, he was a monster. The other guy who was great in that game was Joe D. Michelle, that kid, the big lineman. Oh my God,
absolutely.
And a lot of kids, a lot of hits on Casey that day. It was a really, really tough game. Obviously defended champions, and it was like SEC versus the SWC, and that game was nuts. As much as I love to reminisce about it. So I mean, as far as the kids go, who's been really, who've been your main guys? Who's kind of stepped up for the Blue Wave so far?
Yeah, defensively, it's been a real balanced attack. I think, obviously, everyone wants to point to Girolamo with 6 or 7 interceptions and a fumble recovery. With those stats, it stands out. I mean, he's been fantastic, and the secondary is held up with really only Girolamo being the main starter back from last year, and Morgan Rubenstein at corner, but all new linebackers and a host of new defensive linemen. They've really held up pretty well in a fairly new scheme. We're asking different things of different players, and they've held up. But across the board defensively, everyone's really kind of pulling their weight. Offensively, I think 2 guys from last year took snaps. Jack Stewart, Jackson Davenport, and a couple of the receivers had a roll in and out, but really those are the 2 main guys. And Rolap and Cunningham at quarterback have kind of had dual opportunities, and they'll continue to do that. They do things really well. They do different things really well, I should say, and we've been pleased with what they've done. And obviously, people get the attention of Tom and Roach just because their mass and their massive size and their difference making. But again, I feel like we're a really balanced attack offensively. People always want to talk about those 2, and yeah, they play a huge role in our game planning and play a big role in what we do. But it's been great to see everyone have a part in what we're doing.
you mentioned the two quarterbacks in Declan and Ben, and you say they do they do different things well. How is the relationship between the two? Because I'm sure they want to be the quarterback, right? But here they are splitting time. How is the relationship between the two of them? Obviously, Declan is a senior and Ben is a sophomore as well.
I would say they probably didn't come into this season that close with a relationship, but one of our points all summer with our workouts and in August was that this quarterback room is got to be a place where you guys motivate each other on a daily basis. It can't be something where you're tearing each other down or talking to the team about what you do better than the other one. And from what we've seen, it's just been a very positive experience. They talk to each other when they come off the field. They talk to each other throughout practice. It's a constant line of communication between the two of them on things they see, on things that they're reading. So yeah, it could definitely go wrong when you're running this style of two quarterbacks. And but what I've seen is two kids that have been great teammates, great leaders, and just pushing each other and themselves to be the best they possibly can.
And then obviously you come out your first. I mean, how many more plays are we going to see? The first play against Brian McMahon, you got both of them on the field.
Yeah.
And you throw a little
interception
there. Yeah, he threw an interception. I wasn't going to bring that up, but you had them both out on the field together on the first play of the year.
Yeah, and I think that's just a tribute to how hard they both have worked in the preseason. Wanted to give them both an opportunity to get on the field. Like I said, we need to find spots for Ben and find spots for Declan. And little by little, you start to kind of get the rhythm of a game, and they understand that. Depending on what the defense is doing and how we're playing and what the scheme tells us, but I like to see a lot of quarterbacks on the field on our side, and not have that on opposing teams, because it's quite a headache.
What do you do, Coach, with a 6'8", 225 kid on your roster? I mean, he can play pretty much anywhere, right?
Yeah, he does. He's a force, and I know it's tough to kind of hide him in certain situations because he stands out so much. Yeah, one of the beauties is we have a 6'6" kid who stands right next to him. So maybe you get lost on which giant to cover. I mean, he does everything for us. He blocks. He goes in the backfield. He's out on the outside. We've been really, really happy with just his development from sophomore to junior year. He takes really good care of his body. It's a lot of body to take care of. So,
how much did he grow in the last year?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he grew all that much. Probably an inch and a half. He was pretty big as a sophomore, and so we knew he had a large body. It was just a matter of how athletic and how could he work on his hands and his footwork and his moving in space. And he puts in a lot of time and a lot of effort.
Is he a football guy, or does he play?
Yeah, I think that he's definitely not a basketball guy, but he's. I think more and more he sees football in his future. So he's been pretty happy with football over the last 4 or 5 months.
Your third game of the season against your typical usually scrimmage Fairfield Prep at the end of the preseason. It's like your last preseason game. It's live, and you guys usually play it live. But how was that playing that game? I think they were 0-2 at the time. And you didn't really know about what you guys had with them. How big was that game for you? I mean, for you guys to just give up just a safety, that was it. That was it. How did that game really kind of propel you? I mean, I know it was kind of a unique game. Fairfield Prep's been really struggling, but at the time, it was still pretty big for you guys.
Yeah, it was a big win. I mean, to have the schedule that Prep's played week 1 through week 5 is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a slugfest for them every week, and they are big, they're fast, they're physical. At the time, they had just come off a hand loss. So we knew they were motivated, and it was really physical high school football game. One of the more physical ones I've seen in my tenure in Darien. It was just very physical, very downhill. Put us in a really good spot emotionally and mentally. And you only scored 10 points, but the offense sealed the deal. They had a 7-minute drive in the third quarter and a 9-minute drive in the fourth quarter. We were able to control the clock in a game that we weren't able to put a ton of points up, but they were able to drive down the field on 2 separate occasions and just crush the clock, which put us in a really great spot.
Yeah.
We learned a lot from that game just in terms of the toughness of our kids, and I think they responded really well to a competition of that magnitude.
So you have and how was that Norwalk game? You get to see Mike again. That was kind of obviously they're struggling, but how was that? As coach that game.
It was interesting to see Mike and Dave as defensive coordinator across the field instead of standing next to me. I was just glad to get out of there. It was on a Friday night where it was just pouring. So I think we just shook hands at the end and just everyone wanted to get the teams off the field as quickly as possible after the monsoon we had just sat through for 3 hours.
Yeah, not a lot of time for chit.
No. Yeah, the wind and the driving rain in the face was like, all right, we'll talk to each other on the phone over the next few days.
Tell me about you guys again. You didn't get the North Haven game. McMahon gave you a little bit of a scare. You guys got out of that one, and then since then you guys have been kind of lying in the weeds a bit. Now you can't hide anymore. Speaking of not hiding, now you can't hide anymore. You got number 1 Greenwich this weekend, Saturday. What's how do you match up against them? What do you like? What do you like from what scares you about them? And how do you see this one going? This is a big time FCIAC rivalry, first big game, I guess, of your coaching career, and first big game for a lot of your kids.
I mean, obviously Greenwich is big, physical. They have the ability to obviously run the ball. They have deep threats, so they're pretty well balanced offensively. Defensively, I mean, from what I've seen, probably the best defense in the state up to this point. They have a lot of large bodies, physical linebackers. So we need to find our spots. We need to find places that we can move the ball and places we can take our shots. They're very well coached. They have good coaches across the board. I mean, a lot of bodies over there that really kind of manage the flow of the game. So for us, it's a challenge, and I look forward to that challenge. I think we do some things really well, help us match up well against them. We'll see. It's gonna, like you said, it's gonna be a big showdown at a time where there's not a lot of other games going on in high school football on a Saturday at 2. I think Greenwich likes that. It puts them in the limelight, and we look forward to that challenge.
We'll be there for sure for those lovely 2:00 games.
Lovely.
Down at Greenwich. Nothing like working all night Friday and then having to do it late on Saturday again. But Coach, what do you tell the kids, heading into a game like that? Obviously, it's been a funky start, but this is, kind of the big one. And you go, it starts with Greenwich. You got Wilton in 2 weeks, New Canaan, after that. I mean, the 4-0 start's great, right? You don't want it any other way, but how do you keep them focused on, what's ahead and what the ultimate goal is of getting back to the postseason?
Yeah, I think that obviously everyone knows that there were probably 5 games circled on our schedule with perennial top 10 teams of North Haven, Prep, Greenwich, Wilton, and New Canaan. So we've known this was coming for a long time, and I think the kids' focus just last week during a bye week was spectacular, just in terms of how kids respond on a bye week. But knowing Greenwich was looming here, they were pretty dialed in mentally and physically. I think everyone on the staff, on the team, know what we need to do to win this game, and I think it's all hands on deck to get that accomplished.
So, Coach, I mean, it sounds like you're going to get if you don't have a good feel for your team now, you'll definitely get a really good feel for them this Saturday. So that's a really big one. And and I guess we'll kind of see what the blue wave, because everyone's kind of like wondering, all right, you're ranked 9, but it's kind of like a tentative 9.
Yeah.
Like, what do we got here? Because you didn't see against North Haven. Fairfield Prep's kind of down. And then you had McMahon, tough, but that was your first game of the year. And then obviously Norwalk, and that was a rally. That was the first time you really got a nice. But now you got a bye, so the nice bye week for you and Greenwich. I'm sure we give you a nice. Would you rather have a bye before them, or
no?
what?
I would like to play. We played 3 games then a bye, and I'd rather save that for later in the year when we played 4 or 5 in a row. But it is what it is, and the whole state pretty much was quiet. Like you said, this is a test. I mean, our kids are excited. Our kids are ready to compete. I'm sure Greenwich is ready to go. There's no one hiding in this game. I think they're out there as the number 1. We've kind of come out to be the number 9 team, and I think we both know what each other have. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to be a great competition, hopefully on a nice Saturday afternoon. In both teams to be physical and fast and put the best performance on we can.
Oh, that sounds great. I mean, we were excited, Pete. One of us is going to be at that game, and the other will be at the Staples Wilton, which is obviously another big one. So, listen, Coach, we appreciate you giving a little time. We'll see what the Blue Wave is about this year. Like, I'm excited to find out. Regardless of what game I go to, but I'm excited to find out what happens here. And whatever happens, I'm sure we'll be seeing you guys down the road. I mean, 4-0 start can't get much better than that. Even if you go to 4-1, who cares at this point? Because the way the playoffs are set up. But don't want to get too ahead of yourself. But we'll see what happens this week, Coach. We appreciate you coming on a little bit. Good job so far. We'll see you down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for some time, and we'll see you guys soon.
All right, Coach.
Thanks,
a
Coach.
lot.
Appreciate it.
So, Pete, Andy Grant. I don't know yet. We don't know yet about where will the real Blue Wave stand up. We saw lots of defense. We've seen some offense. Still a team trying to find its identity. But hey, Andy's been there. He's been around. It's not like it's going to be much of a surprise to him.
No, I think he's in a great spot. I mean, look, you'll take 4-0. If I told him before the season, hey, Coach, we'll be 4-0 heading into Greenwich, he's going to take that. But, man, you look at that schedule, and it is just weird. Forfeit win to North Haven, right? You beat Brian McMahon on a very hard call in the back of the end zone that really could have gone either way. You beat Prep 10-2. A couple of base hits away from Prep making that a game. And then you blow out Norwalk in a game you should have won. So jury is still very out for Darien. I have given them a little bit more love in my ballot. But I'm really looking forward to see how they play against Greenwich. Again, I'm not saying Darien needs to go out here and win this game. But I need to see them compete with a team that's at a level that we think is at the best in this state, and I need to see them compete in that game before I'm really truly sold on anything.
Yeah, well, of course, we haven't seen them yet. Greenwich again, kind of proving themselves a little bit, but certainly not a Greenwich team. I think at least. Remember, they lost twice last year. I don't think they're invulnerable by any stretch of the imagination. No. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think Greenwich is invulnerable at all. I agree. I just don't look at what Darien has done and been like, oh, here we go. Like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, North Haven, we never got to see. Prep 10-2, a Prep team that's 0-5. Like, they haven't done anything that's overly impressive. That's like, I'm excited for this game, but I'm not sitting here being like, I don't know, Darien might be able to pull this off. Like, I don't think they can. And we'll talk about that on the other show.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, right. It's kind of interesting that forfeit has kind of helped North Haven and Darien a little, because the loser would have been certainly kind of knocked back. Now North Haven did get knocked back a bit, but still, maybe a lot of teams didn't know much about them or how they would fare.
I always say, I mean, the poll, it's just like the college football poll, and it's like it's not if you lose, it's when you lose. If you lose in week 1, you lose in week 2. People forget about it by week 6. I mean, especially our voters. I mean, sometimes you get to the point at certain points in the season, certain teams are ahead of other teams, and they've beaten them. And it's like, we forgot what happened in week 2.
Right. So we'll get to find out more about them. more about Darien this week. Another team I would love to know more about. We're finally going to get to know, Pete, obviously, is Wilton playing host to Staples in a if it's not the top game, it's 1A. I think they're both very similar games right now. I mean, Staples does have a loss. Darien and Greenwich don't. You want to judge it by that. But Wilton, Pete, I'd love to see what. I saw them, didn't get a good feel for them. I saw them beat up on Berlin. I'm like, oh man, Berlin must stink. And then Berlin turned around, beat Bunnell. It beat a bunch of good teams. So I'm curious about what Wilton does when it gets to the FCIAC. They've only won. They played Berlin, Norwalk, Platt, and then Ward, and now they get to bye. Then here they come. Staples at home, at New Canaan, at Darien, at McMahon, and Fairfield Ludlow back home, and then Shelton just to top it all off for Wilton the rest of the way. That is a brutal. You talk about brutal schedules. Now Shelton might scoff at this and prep, but that's a pretty brutal schedule. At least
well, EJ and Mike will meet at midfield before that game on the 17th, and EJ's going to say something. Oh man, the back half of this season's been real tough, and Mike's going to laugh at him and say, yes, the entire season has been tough for us. Thank you for pointing that out. No, this is huge for Wilton. This is when, boys will become men. And this is a make or break 6-game swing for this team. I mean, there are, they got 6 games left. I think one is a guarantee. I think Ludlow, I think Wilton's going to, I think Wilton can blow through them, but those other 5 games on the road, I mean, that's not going to be easy. I mean, we could stop talking about Wilton in 3 weeks.
Yeah. They have the spotlight to themselves, at least, not to themselves, but they have the spotlight on them on Saturday.
Let's also point out quickly, Wilton a couple of years ago, they were kind of in a similar situation, came out, beat Ridgefield, came out, beat New Canaan. I'm all for Wilton being good if it means more EJ D'Annunzio dancing after the game with his team. I'm all in on that.
Yeah, me too. We love it when coaches dance following big wins. Jumping back to last week a little bit, outside of the top 10, Pete, you had North Branford going up to Granby. We had Anthony Salvati on last week, the coach of North Branford. Tommy Hansen facing Will Attianese. Great game. You went up there. What happened? It was the Will Attianese show, and that was all she wrote. Oh, my God. What a performance by Granby, Canton, and Will.
Yeah, he is a dude. I mean, I haven't really seen him much, but I remember his brother Sam, and Sam was a good player. But Sam wasn't as big as Will is. So I get there, and I'm looking around. I'm like, where is Will? I'm like looking at, here's this gigantic guy, and they were wearing black jerseys, black jersey number 2, just a massive, massive man. And he was great, very, very great after, 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 fumble recoveries for a touchdown, just an absolute dominant win by the Bears co-op.
Well, I mean, didn't Will set a record there, Pete?
He did. Tied the record from our boy Luke Marr, his teammate from last year, who had 2 fumble recoveries in a game last season, which is the record. Luke also has the state record for most in a career, which is 4.
It was definitely a statement game, I think, for us. I mean, people were saying we haven't played the most competition so far going into this week. And I mean, they were a 3-0 team. They've been tested, so I think it was a really good one to get going forward.
You mentioned statement game. Did that mean you wanted to kind of play your A game tonight? Because it looked like it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely wanted to play my A game, and the whole team did. Everyone was flying around being physical. I mean, that's all you can ask for. It's good football.
People in the state don't know about yet, but he's a dude. We've been saying that, all year long. All conference kid, and just the work ethic he's put in all offseason has been amazing. He's just the guy. He's everywhere.
He had a great game.
You got to hang out with the record guy himself, Jerry DeSimis.
I did.
What did he say? Look it up, Pete. Is that a record?
Yeah, he looked right at me. I turned to him. I said, "Hey, I think this is a record." And Jerry's like, but I looked at Jerry. I'm like, "Do you know?" Because you do the record book. And he was like, "No, you got to look it up. So we're marking it, and I'm sitting right next to Jerry going down the record book, and we were able to find it, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, listen, he's great. And as you mentioned, over in Rockville, your boy. Speaking of great, Amir Knighton went hog wild, rushing for 269 yards and 4 touchdowns as the Rams ripped Cromwell Portland, my guys, 36-20. Suddenly, the Pequot overall championship, you look back, it was scheduled for week 1. Maybe the football gods, Pete, had something to do with it. Maybe they're like, wait, hold on a second. Let's play this game later. And they went out. The game was already played. Week 1, it was Rockville versus Granby, Canton, big showdown. The football gods said, oh, hold on, let's build up some momentum to this thing. Let's stop this right where we are. We put it at gate week 6. And right now it is Rockville 7-0 late in the first half. As far as I remember, that game will go off on Thursday up at Granby, Canton, or Granby, I should say, Granby Memorial High School, 6 o'clock. Be there or be square to see the resumption of that classic. Again, Rockville already up 7-0. But a very big game, Pete, in the Pequot.
Yeah, I actually got a text message. I think I got a text message Friday night being like, oh, you went to Granby? You didn't want to come to Rockville? So I think they were a little upset that I decided to go to Granby on Friday. So I said, hey, maybe Thursday. And deep down, I was like, I'm not making this drive to Granby twice in 6 days.
Well, maybe
that is a long drive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll we'll see. It's a good game though. We were there to start, and then it went to what? It went to a Sunday. What was it? What had that happen? It
was a Friday,
Saturday, right?
And then it was postponed twice on Saturday. Once at 10 o'clock in the morning because of referees, and then once later in the afternoon. And then the Pequot athletic directors voted to move it to later in the year, as they did with a lot of games from that week 1.
Yeah. So now we pick up where we left off. 7-0 Rockville. Again, should be a great one. So everyone get up there Thursday night. You have no excuse if you're a high school football fan. So that's the Pequot. Moving over to the NVL, Pete, we have Oxford. What a great story is brewing up there. The Wolverines off to the best start in school history at 5-0. And, well, if you really want to look at it, it's only a 14-year history, but you got to start somewhere. You got to set the bar. But we were there a few weeks ago when they toppled Bickering Seymour 17-14 for their first win over the Cats in 10 years. Our guy, Matt McGuire, this time against Woodland, threw for a touchdown and ran for the winning score, about 3 and change left, as the Wolverines outscored Woodland 16-0 in the second half to stay unbeaten 16-13. And, well, I mean, what can you say? Here's our guy, McGuire, talking about it.
Well, at halftime, we talked about it. We figured stuff out. We figured out what was working, what wasn't working. And then Michael went down. I was terrified, to be honest with you. Our whole game plan was me and him, and to lose my other half, it sucks. And but we picked him up. We picked him up off the field. He did his job, so it's time to do mine. That's all I can say about that point.
5-0 for the first time in program history. What does that mean to you and the guys?
We've been waiting for this season for 4 years now, and just to be playing the way we are and the way we wanted to, it just feels amazing, because I knew what we were capable of coming into this season, and to now actually see it happening just means the world.
You guys beat Seymour for the first time in like 10 years. Now you've beaten Woodland for the first time since 2017. What's it mean to beat those NVL rivals?
It feels great. I think beating Seymour was a big confidence boost, coming into this game. Seymour's been beating up on us for plenty of years now, put an end to it. And then it made us believe in ourselves and come out here and play our game against Woodland, and I think we did that.
Awesome, man.
Pete, I love that kid. The kid plays with his heart on his sleeve, broke his collarbone last year, as you recall. And in that Seymour game, as they were driving, trying to put that game away, he looked like he almost did it again. He was on the pain, just absolutely bawling his eyes out. But, after the Seymour game, we all went up to him. We're like, are you all right? Hopefully, are you okay? The trainer was looking at him. Everybody was like TBA. And he said he was fine. And sure enough, right back again. And I'm glad, because what a great win over Woodland. And they're probably right now the story in the NVL.
Yeah, we joked about it, I think, on the Picks pod, and, with the crossover of the NVL and how the divisions are split up. And no, Oxford was just like, we're just going to go beat Woodland. And you look at their schedule, and it's like they could be 8-0 kind of heading into a date with Ansonia, the second to last game of the year. I mean, Stock is, shout out to Stock, SCSU guy. But I know, you and him go back, Sean, and this has been a big work in progress for them. Joe's been the coach there since day one, I believe.
Yeah.
And
coach they ever had.
And they've never been to the playoffs, and this might be his best group that he's had. So to see them put it together, and I don't want to look too far ahead. I'm not jinxing anything, but
I'll look too far ahead
in history. Yeah, I'm just saying we could be seeing history here, and I think that's really cool.
I said in the guide that was a playoff qualifier, and sure enough, I think that's going to do it for them. They got to play Ansonia, and they've got. I know they have Torrington in there. Speaking of Torrington, it looked like that might have been a big game November 3rd before the Ansonia game. Well, Torrington lost to Kennedy 34-28. Shout out to the Eagles who just trolled us hard on Instagram after they knocked off the Raiders. Julius Cabin ran for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns, just 8 carries. That's a great job. They look at them on Instagram, just we don't care and going nuts. Absolutely wonderful job by them. And hey, who knows? We loved it. Like we said, we love when the city schools rise up and show us a thing or two. And that's right now in the NVL. And speaking of teams that we completely misjudged, Guilford, team I said was not going to lose until at least Thanksgiving. Well, let me tell you something about Guilford. They lost to Hillhouse, a team that hadn't won a game yet. In fact, they got beat a few weeks ago by Bristol Eastern 2-0. Well, what can I tell you? Congratulations to Walter Gibb and the Axe beating the once thought by me unbeaten Guilford Grizzlies 20-14. Elijah McLean ran for touchdowns of 70 and 26 yards to lead the Academics to their first win, maybe the first of many to come. It just takes a little bit, right? You just need that first one to get you over the hump, and now you get your confidence going. So big one for the Academics, knocking off an undefeated team. And Guilford, a team that has its sights on also making the playoffs for the first time. I think, unfortunately for everybody, I don't think this. I mean, maybe this is a warning sign for Guilford, but I don't think you should read too much into this. I think they will be playoff bound later on. And just kind of moving over to the CCC, your boy, Pete, our boy, Evan Anderson, a year to the day that his father died. If you remember that, he caught a touchdown pass in that game, and he also got injured for the season against East Hartford last year in that game. In this game against Conard, he caught a touchdown. He got 3 touchdown passes in honor of his dad and his quarterback, CJ DiBenedetto, who had just a brutal game last week and a loss to Hall. Threw for 7 touchdowns and 351 yards as Southington snapped a 2-game losing streak. I couldn't tell you the last time they lost 3 in a row. I'd have to go back maybe into the 90s to find that. But a really good job by him, and very nice. We're really happy for Evan, Pete.
Yeah, it was really great to see. The Record Journal, where I worked for 3 wonderful years, their Twitter account, whoever's at that game, is like going like, CJ threw another touchdown in the first quarter, and I'm just sitting there being like, if only he threw one of those last week. But great to see CJ is a heck of a quarterback. It was great to see for Evan. Our boy Rashad Williams had, I think, 3 catches for over 100 and 3 touchdowns, or 4 catches for 3 touchdowns. This is the Southington that we've come to expect to see. Not 7 touchdown passes in each game, because only, I think, 3 other quarterbacks in state history have done it. I believe it's Michael Collins, Tanner Kingsley's did it twice, and Manson at Bloomfield. If I'm correct.
Jason Manson, Bloomfield.
Jason Manson and Collins had 9. Kingsley did 8 9. Twice. Yeah, Manson and Collins did 9, and Kingsley did 8 twice.
9.
So that's who you have to beat. But no, that's great. That's great for Southington. There is one team I did want to give a little shout out to. The VGW Tech Co-op beat O'Brien Tech on Friday 18-8. It was their first win since November 27th, 2019.
Wow.
That is 1,410 days between wins. Still coached by Doug Jackson. So Doug Jackson helped create the vinyl program many years ago, before my time. My roommate from college, Seb, played for Doug at Vinyl Tech. So Seb is in my texts every week about vinyl, and I don't really have much to tell him. So it was nice. I got to text him Friday night and be like, hey, buddy, VGW won. But yeah, first win in 1,410 days. So congrats to Vinyl Tech, to Goodwin Tech, Whitney Tech. First win in a long time. So that's pretty cool.
Why don't we just stay in the CTCP? How about Abbott Tech Immaculate? 0-4 versus the SWC as a program. You know, they get the crossovers with the Alliance. They got to play Bethel 44-16 ATI in their first SWC victory. Nice work, Pete, by Keith Saunders running for a pair of touchdowns in the victory. So lots of milestones being broken there in the CTC. Now all they got to do is win a playoff game, and then we'll be off and running. So all right. Anyway, I'm going to circle quickly back to the CCC. E.O. Smith, Sam DeJesus, 101 yards, 2 TDs on 8 carries, 2 pickoffs to beat Avon 28-27. And Middletown finally breaking the Manchester still. Remember, they were undefeated, Manchester. We're starting to get DMs about them. 12-7. Couldn't tell you much about that game because nobody sent anything in. So, so it was a busy bye week. And we got lots coming up this week 6. We have the NVLs is off. The SEC is still pretty much on, though you're going to have half and half right now. The ECC is back in action. The FCIAC's back in action. The CCC is pretty much off. And am I missing? Who am I missing here? Oh, the SWC, right?
Yeah, the SWC is back.
They're back in action, too. So, we get that bye week, and then we go into the mid-season. We have a mid-season report coming up and all that goody stuff. So here we are. We're getting creeping closer. It's getting dark.
Can we talk about some Connecticut high school alums this weekend?
Oh,
Jason
yeah,
Pinnock,
absolutely.
102-yard interception return. I'm at a 1-year-old's birthday party on Long Island, and he makes the pickoff, and he's running down, and I'm like, New Haven Register All-State 2016. Everyone looked at me. I'm like, none of you understand that. Zach Allen had a sack on Zach Wilson. I was the only one at this 1-year-old birthday party cheering because they were all Jet fans. But I'm like, Zach Allen! Rondell Boytrum from E.O. Smith played so good. Bothroyd played so great in the Oklahoma win over Texas this past week. He was on. I saw some highlights on Twitter. It was sick. Then I don't want to. Tyler Van Dyke didn't play high school football in Connecticut. Well, I guess he played 1 year for Glastonbury. What a disaster at the end of that game for Miami. But just like Connecticut kids, it was just really cool.
No, they were. Listen, we had a comment on. I don't even think he's from here, but he listened to us. It was a YouTube comment on here, and he was like, well, "Why do these guys care so much about Connecticut football? Connecticut couldn't hold a kid to Florida and California, Texas." And I'm just like, "Who says we would? Who cares?" That's the other thing. And by the way, it's not like we don't have a bunch of Power 5 players and NFL players out there. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, we do. I mean, listen, Connecticut does per capita. Connecticut does very well. We're not Florida. We're not Texas. We're not California. We're not a lot of states, but we do very well. I mean, if you want to look around New England and the Northeast, we hold on. We're not Jersey either. And Massachusetts, just by the sheer size of Massachusetts, might do a little bit better. But listen, Connecticut is very well.
We're not Texas, but Rondell helped beat Texas. We're not Florida, but Tyler Van Dyke starts for Miami.
Yeah. Tyler Van Dyke, who played at Suffield Academy. And, let me just
he played Glastonbury freshman year, so he sort of counts.
But no, that's still, nobody sort of. He counts, period. He played Connecticut football. He played it. Suffield Academy, last I checked, Pete, is in Connecticut. Speaking of prep schools, I went up to Avon for Avon Old Farms Brunswick Saturday night after watching St. Joseph get demolished by New Canton. I was looking for a little, more competitive high school football game. In the prep schools, they certainly helped me out. Now, along with Cheshire Academy and Choate, both which are undefeated, Avon Old Farms officially established itself as one of the teams to beat in the NEPSAC with a 31-21 victory over Brunswick at rainy Ryan Field Saturday. Pete, it was miserable. And look at this. Former Syracuse coach, when I was there, and former UConn coach, Paul Pasqualoni, in the house, helping coach the line at Avon Old Farms. He's looking just about as miserable as everybody else. Maybe he was wishing he was still coaching for the Dallas Cowboys. But Owen Moreland, a junior from Beverly, Mass., bolts down the right sideline to get Avon an early 6-0 lead. But Brunswick rallies back thanks to this guy, Bryce Davis. Just an exceptional year so far despite Brunswick's struggles. He returns the ball all the way back on the ensuing kickoff and then tacks on a rushing touchdown to give the Bruins a 14-6 lead late in the second quarter. It looks like it's going to stay that way when Ethan Long from Milford downs his punt down at 3. But that's plenty of time left for Georgia commit Ryan Puglisi, the quarterback, Avon Old Farms quarterback, marches his team down the field, 97 yards, capping the drive with a 37-yard touchdown pass to Connor Cronin, the first of 2 times those would hook up today. Still, Brunswick hanging on to a 14-12 lead at the break and into the fourth quarter. The rain is let up, but a bad Avon Old Farms snap results in a fumble. It's pounced on by Brunswick Thomas Pope, and a chance for the Bruins to make this a 2-score game late in the fourth quarter. But after taking a crack at the end zone, Brunswick coughs it up itself. Owen Moreland hops on it. What a game he had. And Avon Old Farms in business at midfield. Zip, zip, zip. Down the field goes Avon Old Farms. Kyron Craig and Moreland rip off huge gains deep into Brunswick territory. And Kyron Craig caps the drive with a 5-yard go-ahead touchdown run to give Avon Old Farms a lead for good, 18-14. After the Bruins turned the ball over on downs, Puglisi with the hard clap gets the Bruins to jump off sides, and while everybody's sleeping, he hits Cronin again, this time for a 41-yard touchdown pass. Later on, he'd add another score from 30 yards out. 31-21, Bruins scored late with Bryce Davis, and that was that. They're sitting pretty at 3-0 in the Founders League, with big games still ahead. But right now, Avon Old Farms can celebrate. They're undefeated. And here's Puglisi.
I mean, all summer long, all preseason long, we had our saying on the back of our jersey was close the gap. But we lost all 3 games last year, a total of 23 points. Brunswick concluded we lost to Brunswick last year by 4 points. And the recipe for us closing that gap was toughness. Exactly what this was today was toughness. And we displayed that the whole entire game. We knew we were going to hand the ball off. We knew we were going to run it more than we throw it. And basically, we're just going to oppose our will in the team. And that's exactly what we did.
You know, I have the utmost respect for Coach McGillicuddy and their program in Brunswick. And to me, they're where we wanted to be, obviously. And that's been a mantra of, you know, our whole entire year of closing the gap from the teams, the Choate Loomis and Brunswick that beat us last year and take it to another level. And I think when you're playing against a team that is extremely well coached, extremely talented, and has lost 2 heartbreaking losses, you know they're going to play with an unbelievable amount of gusto. And for us to go through that environment, continue to fight, get down, not things go our way, and really fight through and make big plays when the opportunities came. I'm extremely proud of the kids. And it's a great win for our program and for the team.
It's looking like them and Choate, and that big game between them and Choate is at home at Avon November 4th. We got a few weeks to go for that, but barring any surprises, it looks like those two are good. That game is going to be for who reps the Founders League in the big overall game in the next second. We'll see where Treasure Academy is by then. But, you know, right now, that is where we are. We shall see. So because of the bye week, we decided, you know, we need to add a little more spice to these programs. I thought it's been a pretty good show so far, but I want to add a little more spice. I want to get a little more interaction. Everyone seems, beginning with Shelton and all the guys we see out in the field, a lot of even referees coming up to me. Oh, we love the podcast, but I love that you guys watch. So we decided to add a little wrinkle to it. We're going to add a little mailbag here, and where you just ask us some questions that maybe we won't get to in the course of a talk. Of a podcast, I should say. And so what do we got here? Let's go to our mailbag. We asked you to post comments at the bottom of last week's episode, and a few of you guys did, beginning with Random Brew, who loves the channel. Everyone should subscribe and watch. I cannot agree with you more, Random. He's got 2 questions. And he prefaces, but he roots for, he's a big Cheshire fan. The question is, what do you think should be done about the disparity of unbalanced schedules for teams battling for the same playoff spots? He brings up Double M. You look at the top 3 teams. Wilton plays only 2 other Double M teams. Cheshire plays only 1 Double M team, North Haven. And North Haven only has 2 games in Double M's. And the 24 of the remaining games scheduled for those teams are against L or Double L teams. The scheduling doesn't seem to make any logical sense. And beyond the problems that the SEC Tier 1 teams face with the gauntlet that is their schedule, are there any creative solutions that you could suggest to remedy these issues? You want to handle this one, Peter, or should I handle it?
Tear it down, start over, schedule by class. I mean, these are things that we have discussed before on the show, but it is a big issue. I mean, we talk about Sheehan in Class S not playing S schools. I believe they're double S now, but a lot of these teams aren't competing against teams that they're fighting for playoff spots for. It's a huge disadvantage. And you look, I mean, those three schools, Wilton, Cheshire, North Haven, all should make the double M playoffs. So if I'm them, I'm happy because when I get to the playoffs, you've played double L's and L's. But who should be pissed is the double L schools, the other double M schools who only play double M schools, or the double M schools that play smaller schools. Take Platt, for example. Platt is 3-1, right? They played Wilton, right? But Ram, Rocky Hill, Bristol Eastern, South Windsor, Farmington, E.O. Smith, and then Malone. That schedule does not compare to what Cheshire, Wilton, and North Haven are going to have to go through. So those three teams, if they get into the playoffs, they're going to be thrilled. It's going to be cakewalk. It's the other teams that should be really pissed. And then you look at Xavier. So Xavier's going to get in probably double M, playing in the same division as Cheshire and North Haven, same conference as Cheshire and North Haven, completely different schedules. What you have to do is tear the whole thing down, get rid of conferences. Conferences don't mean anything. I don't care about your Shoreline West title. Okay. Get rid of conferences and schedule by your class. Whether we keep classes, we go to a division format. That's what your regular season should schedule by. That's who you should compete against. And then, yes, if a 5-5 team gets in, then fine. But a 5-5 team battled against their own division, their own class.
So I agree with Pete. I've said this ad nauseum. I've gone on and on about this for the better part of the last 10, 12 years. We need to go, like the rest of the country, we need to go to a kind of a district model / regional schedule. No Massac going to Killingley just because Killingley is double M. None of that. We need to do Massac plays, a lot of double M schools that are in its, or whatever, M schools in its area, or L schools, wherever have you. I think it's hard to do. It's never going to come out perfect. There's no perfect way to do this. I actually sat there and tried to do double L regional scheduling, and what screws it really up is the 3 Waterbury schools. They're all double L. Everywhere else, it's great. It matches up perfectly, but you got to find a place for them. And unfortunately, you almost got to put them in a division with Cheshire, Amity, and Southington, and West Haven, as currently the enrollments go. So listen, it's not going to be perfect, but there needs maybe you offset that by creating a better, system. It's not just done by class, but it's also done by, some performance or, maybe some resources. I've even suggested doing having a lower class, like a Division 2, so to speak, or Division 3 where you have to play your way up. I don't know. There's a lot you could do, but I think the base we need to do, Pete, is we need to go to a regional scheduling, because it's insanity the way they do it. It really is. I mean, it's great for the teams that win state championships, but it's just the scheduling makes zero sense. Period. End of discussion. All right, let's move on to another question quickly from the same guy, Random Brew. Speaking of unbalanced schedules and resume, what more does West Haven have to do to get some first place votes? I find it hard to believe that anyone could look at their schedule and see what they've done and onward and onward. And all right, well, I'm going to start off here by saying, number one, Greenwich is number one. They were number one last year, and how voters do it in the state is they take the number one from last year 9 times out of 10, and they will carry it over, especially if the team is figure like Greenwich is this year, to have a good amount of players back. And then everyone kind of, is it fair? Yeah, maybe not. Maybe you want to start this poll like the coaches one. You start it in week 2 or something like that. But the way we do it, we like to do it here. We like to try to have a little more fun with it. So the rankings start the preseason. We like to try and figure out who's number one. But it really, with West Haven's schedule, I think there's a lot of people who are looking at West Haven right now, and they're like, what doesn't make them number one? Well, nothing really. You can vote them number one if you want. I mean, Greenwich just happens to have not lost yet. They also beat Maloney, so that was big. They came back and they beat a good Stanford team, and so that's where they are. But West Haven, yeah, sure has the better resume, but we shall see.
There's also,
if they play North Haven.
There's also, like we talked about this earlier, in terms of the poll and when you lose, right? But also where you start. Fairfield Prep was number 3 when the season began. Greenwich beat them week 1. Okay, so that's technically, if you want to play that game, that's a top 3 win. According to RPI, according to the way you do it in college, like that's a top 3 win, right? Obviously, that is not the case, and Fairfield Prep is 0-5. But at the time, it was a top 3 win for Greenwich. Then they go and they beat Maloney, who I believe was also in the top 3. Or were they in the top 4?
No, they were 3.
They were 3. All right, so Greenwich has 2 top 3 wins this year. Technically.
Yep.
Now, is that how it'll shake out at the end of the year? Probably not. But at the moment, Greenwich has 2 top 3 wins, according to our poll. West Haven has 2 top 10 wins, according to our poll. That said, this person has said that they have seen both, and they are both very talented teams. I have as well. And I said this on last week's show, is that West Haven is prone to more mistakes that I would like to see them clean up before I move them ahead of Greenwich. It's not, I think when you vote after 5 to 15, it's a little different, but that number 1 vote holds a lot of weight. And it's not easy to shift it off of, you stuck your flag in Greenwich. It's going to take a lot to get you to flip it if they keep winning. And this person also adds that I punish Ansonia in the polls because of their schedule. I don't punish Ansonia in the polls because of the schedule. I don't vote for them because of their schedule. I'm not punishing them. I'm just not voting for them. They're not in the poll being punished. They're just not in my poll. But I also don't vote for Bloomfield. So I vote for the bigger schools. That's how I've always been. I don't vote for teams just because they want a state championship. I just have never been like that.
I vote. I actually vote for Bloomfield, although I don't know why specifically they beat. I think just because they beat Massac. I actually have them pretty high, relatively speaking. I don't know. I'll have to look at that again. But I mean, I have voted Ansonia. It's just it's hard. It's hard because Ansonia pound for pound its top 11 can play with most other teams. You just don't get to see it, and that's an issue. So it's hard for me to vote them much higher than 10. Especially nowadays, like back in the old days, when they had some dudes and they're playing against other dudes from other like New London, beating Jordan Reed. Those were big time teams they played. It was a lot easier to make them number 1 in 06 and 07. They don't face those type of teams. Like Holy Cross back then was just incredible, and they beat them.
Yeah,
so
it's different.
It's
The NVL,
it's harder.
And the NVL hasn't done any favors in terms of like success. So it's not like Ansonia is beating Naugatuck on Thanksgiving and then Naugatuck is, making a run to
winning
the
a
L
state
finals.
champion. No, they're not. No.
They're losing in the first round of the playoffs every year. They got in 2018, right? Ansonia beats Naugatuck. Naugatuck, I think, is like the 1 or 2 in L. And then they go and they lose to Platt. Yeah. And it's like, well, how much weight am I going to put in this Ansonia win now?
Right.
And it's a shame. The NVL
they beat it.
Is not whole. Yes, yeah. But it's just like you feel bad for Ansonia in that way, is that the NVL is not really doing anything. And then take it to the flip side, you got Holy Cross beats, Woodland on the season opener in this overtime game, and you're like, Holy Cross is good. Then Holy Cross gets, blown out by Naugatuck. And then Woodland loses to Oxford. And now you're sitting there and you're going, is anyone going to compete with Ansonia? Because it doesn't seem like it. So they're going to go win S. They're going to beat Bloomfield, who beat Massac, who lost their quarterback at halftime. That was the only reason they were able to keep Massac out of the end zone in the second half. And then you start to kind of put it together and you're like, well, they didn't really play anybody. And that's a shame.
And as Shelton will attest to, you need a little more, you need some depth to at least hang in there in SEC Tier 1. I don't care who you are. That's a tough. You play in those, you're going to lose some games. I don't care who you are. So, is Antonio going to play in those leagues? No, they're in Class S. They're a small school. So, yeah, I don't. That's another factor. It's not like it was 15 years ago. I mean, just isn't. So that'll be it for the mailbag this week. If you want a question to be possibly answered on we still have others we'll get to eventually. But if you want to ask more questions, just drop a comment, like and subscribe, and drop a comment at the bottom of the YouTube page. And that'll wrap it up here for a week 5 to going into 6 podcast. One more week of buys. Then we're back to regular order as we head into late October and start the playoff drive. We'll start looking at playoff points. We'll start looking at which playoff divisions are the strong ones, which ones are the really weak ones, and there are some weak ones already. If you just look at the playoff standings, yikes. I hate 6 playoff divisions. That needs to change. It's ridiculous. That's what I'll say about that for now. But that's it, Pete. A week 6 in the books, and onward we go. So, for Pete Paguaga, I am Sean Patrick Bowley. This has been the Meat Grinder on GameTime CT.
Love you all.